Hello all my dear students. So how you all are going? Hope you are doing pretty well. I'm Amit Ajmani, your educator, and I welcome you all to Sri Jendra Rank Zone classes. I hope your preparation level is going well and you are sincerely working out because all of you have a purpose in hand. And what are we supposed to do today in the class? I hope you all are aware that in today's class we'll be discussing the question answers of matter in our surrounding. Very small chapter, short and sweet chapter, simple chapter, which we have completed in the previous class. So let us see that what type of questions we are going to encounter and what we need to be prepared for. So getting your pens and registers ready, I suppose, and getting you also ready, let us continue with the questions. First question is, which of the following has maximum intermolecular force? Now, when we talk about intermolecular force, we know that the maximum intermolecular forces are found in solids. Why so? Because the particles are tightly packed. The minimum intermolecular forces are found in gases, again because the particles are very loosely packed. So let us see what are the options. Honey, liquid, water, liquid, ice is solid, water vapor gases. So if we are talking about maximum intermolecular forces, it has to be in solids, which among these options is only ice. So C, ice will have the maximum intermolecular forces. Got it, everyone? Coming to the second question, which of the following is the property of matter? Number one is it has mass. Yes, matter has mass. It occupies space. Yes, it does. Both A and B. Obviously, we will go for this. None of the above. No. So simply the simplest definition of matter that we have been studying since 5th class, anything that has mass and occupies space is called matter. So it has both the properties. It has got mass also. It has got space also. So C, once again, both A and B will be the right answer to this particular question. Right? Coming to the third question, the form of matter which has a definite shape and definite volume, that is solids. Solids have got definite shape and definite volume. Talking about liquids, they have a definite volume but no definite shape. They always take the shape of the container. And talking about gases, they neither have definite shape nor definite volume. So solids A part will be the answer. That is the form of matter which has got definite shape and definite volume. Next, a liquid has fixed shape and fixed volume. The volume is fixed, not the shape. No fixed shape but fixed volume. Yes. Fixed shape. No. Neither fixed shape nor fixed volume. Volume is fixed. So this is also incorrect. The correct answer is B. Now students, there are so many times when some of you, rather many of you, at times they feel that sir, there are so simple things. Why are you elaborating them so much? The reason is quite simple, that when we are taking up any class, we are taking it in general, right? Keeping in view that we are taking a class in a group which is meant for all the students of different levels. Some of you are very studious, very knowledgeable, very intelligent by God's grace, very good. So for them, they will find that the pace is comparatively slow. But there are certain students who are of average level. For them, the pace is perfect. And trust me that there are times when we are teaching the below average students or those students which have some difficulty in understanding, right? Or if there are times when the language of the question they are not able to relate, in that case we need to go slow because for them the pace becomes very high. So we have to go in a general format. Maybe some of you will find the pace to be a bit slow, some of them will find to be appropriate, some of you will find to be a bit fast, but you need to adjust accordingly. Fine, especially if you find the pace to be slow, have patience. Clear? Have patience, because there are certain topics in which even the most intelligent students, they at times, they make some careless error, because of which their overconfidence that costs them marks. Okay, so I know that these questions are quite simple that we have done till now, because this is a very simple chapter, but still we'll be going as per a normal simple pace. So with that pace, coming to the next question, the form of matter which neither has a definite shape nor a fixed volume, we just discussed, they are the gaseous state, right? So C will be the answer that we are going to mark. Coming to the next question, which of the following is the smallest unit of an element? When we are talking about any element, which of them is the smallest unit? Is it molecule? Is it compound? Is it atom? Or is it matter? Matter can't be. So we are left with three options. It should be atoms. These atoms are the smallest unit. When these atoms of same elements combine together, they will form molecule, and when these atoms again of different elements combine together, they form compounds. So molecules or compounds are made up of atoms only. So atom is the smallest unit, and this will be the answer C, atoms. Next, on converting the following, that is 25 degrees Celsius from degree Celsius to degree Kelvin, we get. Now this you need to relate that temperature on Kelvin scale is always equal to temperature on degree Celsius scale plus 273. This is how we convert the temperature on Kelvin and Celsius scale respectively. So here we are given the temperature in degree Celsius scale, that is 25 degree. So we will put 25 degree here, plus if we add 273, we will get the temperature on the Kelvin scale. So 25 plus 273 comes out to be 298 Kelvin. Right? Simple. Temperature on Kelvin scale is equal to 273 plus temperature on degree Celsius. So this is how we can convert these two scales. Fine. The next question is opposite. 470 Kelvin temperature can be written in the Celsius scale as. Now in this case, Kelvin temperature is given to us. This is 470 is equal to, we need to calculate the temperature on degree Celsius plus 273. So keeping degree Celsius here and taking 273 on the other side, we will get 470 minus 273, which comes out to be 197 degree Celsius. So this simple formula you can note down, or you can remember, or maybe you already know it. Fine, as per the case may be. So this is how we convert the degree Celsius temperature to Kelvin scale, or the Kelvin to degree Celsius. There are two scales of measuring temperature, right? One is degree Celsius and one is Kelvin, and there are certain times a few of the students are a bit confused, but please make sure that the SI unit of temperature is Kelvin, not degree Celsius. Fine, it is Kelvin. And out of degree Celsius and Kelvin scale, the Kelvin scale is considered better. Why? There is a reason. The reason is that degree Celsius starts from 0 degree, right? The range is less, and importantly, the temperature can be in minus. But in Kelvin scale, the temperature never goes in minus. Fine, so this is one of the advantages of Kelvin scale. Let us come to the next question. Particles of matter are continuously moving. That is, they possess what we call, which type of energy? Is it potential energy, nuclear energy, kinetic energy or atomic energy? Now, when we are talking about the constant motion of the particles, we are talking about the kinetic energy, because kinetic energy is the energy possessed by a body due to its motion, right? So this is kinetic energy, and you must be aware about the kinetic theory of matter also, which states that the particles of matter are continuously moving. This is kinetic theory of matter. Fine. So C, kinetic energy will be the right answer. Next, the dash of a solid, dash we have to fill in the blank, is an indication of the strength of the force of attraction between its particles. Is it the boiling point? Is it the transition point? Or the freezing point? Or the melting point? The answer is D, the melting point. Because this is the temperature at which a solid is converted into liquid. Fine. So it is the melting point which is an indication of as to how strong the bonds were, the forces of attraction were in that solid. Because the higher the melting point, more is the force of attraction, due to which we are supplying more energy to break those forces. So D, melting point, is what we are going to mark. Next question is, the physical state of water at 0 degrees Celsius is. Which is the physical state? Is it liquid or gaseous or semi-solid or solid? Simple. The answer we know, that the physical state of water at 100 degrees is liquid form. So A, liquid is the answer. Some students also say, sir, steam is also at 100 degree. Right, but that is normally not the physical state, and even though you are boiling water at 100 degree, not whole of the water is going to be converted into gaseous form at 100 degree at once. So we'll mark the liquid state. Next, cotton is a good absorber of water. This is what we studied in the yesterday's class, that we always wear cotton clothes in summers because it is a good absorber of water. That is why it makes dash easier. Where have we studied this process? We have studied it under the topic evaporation. It can't be condensation. It is not boiling or vaporization. It is the process of evaporation, which is made easier if we are wearing cotton clothes. Fine. So B, evaporation, is what you are going to mark. Next is the same question. What type of clothes should we wear in summer? Always cotton clothes. Do not try to wear the woolen clothes. Everybody is not only going to laugh at you, but you yourself will feel miserable. We all know that, right? So it is the cotton clothes that we wear in summers. The reason, we have studied in the previous class, that they make the process of evaporation better and helps in cooling our body in summers. Next question. Dash is change from solid to gaseous state without going through a liquid state. So this is sublimation. Sublimation is the process of conversion of solid directly into gaseous, or gaseous directly into solid without going through the liquid form. The other options are melting. It is the conversion of solid into liquid upon heating. Boiling. It is the conversion of liquid into gases upon heating. Evaporation. Conversion of liquid into gases below the boiling point. So the right answer is D, sublimation. Coming to the next question. Why does a palm this should be feel cold when we put some acetone in it? Now this acetone, why? When we put it on the palm, we feel the palm to be cold, because this acetone is going to absorb our body heat and is going to evaporate, causing cooling. This I already discussed in the previous class. The reason is, the very first, that evaporation takes place causing cooling. When we are talking about palm, boiling cannot take place, condensation cannot take place, right? It is the A part, evaporation. Next question is quite simple. The amount of water vapor present in the air is known as, of course, humidity. Humidity is the amount of water vapors, the moisture which is present in the air. C, humidity will be the answer. Coming to the next question. Evaporation increases with the dash of surface area. Now we have studied that evaporation is directly proportional to surface area. That means if there is an increase in the surface area, the rate of evaporation will also increase. So D, we are going to mark increase. Next question is the intermixing of particles of two different types of matter on their own. This is called, now this process is called diffusion. Diffusion is the process of intermixing of particles of two different types of matter on their own. And it is because of this diffusion only that we are able to smell any good fragrance. If somebody is using perfume or deodorant at the other end of the room, we are able to actually smell it. Why? Because those perfume and deodorant particles, they diffuse into the air and then come to us. Similarly, incense stick, if it is burning at one corner of the room, the whole room it smells good with its fragrance because of diffusion only, right? So B, diffusion will be the right answer. Next, the kinetic energy of the particles increases on increasing the kinetic energy means the movement of the particles, the motion of the particles. That is what kinetic energy is all about. So, on increasing the temperature, this is going to happen. Why? Because on increasing the temperature, we are actually providing them heat energy. And after gaining that heat energy, the particles, they start moving faster. So C, temperature is the answer, that on increasing the temperature, the movement, the motion, the kinetic energy of the particles will increase. Right? Next is full form of CNG. Very easy question. It is compressed natural gas, not neutral gas. Right? So you need to relate the spellings also. Just don't read combined and common and compressed. Oh, compressed. Yes, this is the right answer. No. They are trying to befool you by using neutral gas. It should be natural gas. D. CNG, compressed natural gas used as a fuel. Coming to the next question. In homes for cooking, the gas used is, we all know it is LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. And just to add to this, which gas is the main constituent of LPG? It is butane. You need to remember that also. You have studied that it is butane which is a major constituent of LPG. Talking about CNG, compressed natural gas, methane is the main constituent of CNG. Right? Next question. The states of matter are not known. We know them. Now interconvertible. Now they were already interconvertible. Interconvertible, yes. This is what we were looking for. Yes, the states of matter are interconvertible, means one state of matter can be converted into another and vice versa, right? Next question. One of the following does not undergo sublimation. Now, if you remember in the last class when we were doing the topic of sublimation, we have seen many examples and I specially told you that you need to learn all the examples. Why? Because of this type of question. Just by reading and learning 2 or 3 examples is not sufficient. We need to know all the examples. Iodine was there. It is the substance that sublimes. Ammonium chloride sublimes. Sodium chloride does not sublime. Camphor also sublimes. So it is sodium chloride, common salt, which is the right answer because it does not sublime. Clear? Now the next question is, now this is the question for which I ask you people to carry your pens and registers, because this, when we were teaching, we have not discussed, and if anybody of you knows the answer, very good, but if you don't, then in that case please note such questions. Note it down if you don't know already. The latent heat of fusion of ice, the value is 33.4 into 10 to the power 4 joule per kg, right? So C, 33.4 into 10 to the power 4 joule per kg. You need to remember the decimal, the superscript 10 to the power 4, and the unit also joule per kg. Everything is equally important. They could have confused you by saying 33.4 in 10 power 4 kilojoule per kg. Had it been kilojoule, then it would have been wrong, even though the initial values were same. So make sure that you learn the details properly and observe them also in the question. So latent heat of fusion of ice is 33.4 into 10 power 4 joule per kg, and similarly the latent heat of vaporization of water is, this is 2.25 into 10 to the power 6 joule per kg. Got it? Fine. So these two things, please note down. If you have not learned or if you don't know, please note down. You should learn them. Clear? These questions both, they are equally important. Anyone, they have come so many times. Coming to the next question. Which of the following processes release heat? Now, is it condensation? Is it vaporization? Is it freezing? Or is it melting? Now, whenever we are talking about releasing heat, that means it needs to be some process which is exothermic. And out of these, we can relate that condensation is cooling, freezing is cooling. If we are talking about vaporization, we have to heat. So we have to provide heat. It is endothermic. Melting, for melting also we need to provide heat. So it is first and third, condensation and freezing. And let us see the options. Only one, no. Only four, no. 1 and 3, yes. 2 and 4, no. So 1 and 3, condensation and freezing, these are the two processes out of these four which is going to release heat. Let's see the next question. When heat is constantly supplied by a gas burner with small flame to melt ice, then the temperature of ice during melting increases very slowly, does not increase at all, first remains constant and then increases to form liquid water. We are supplying heat with a small flame to melt the ice. What is going to happen? The temperature of the ice is not going to increase at all. Now, why so? The reason is we are using a small flame, because of which we need to first of all convert this ice at 0 degree in water at 0 degree. Only then the temperature is going to start rising. Remember about the latent heat? That latent heat is the main crux of this question. If you think just imagining practically, most of you will either write increases very slowly or increases to form liquid water. No, because ice is at 0 degree, first of all, the heat in the form of latent heat of fusion has to be supplied, and once it is converted into water at 0 degree, only then the heating is going to increase the temperature slowly. So initially the temperature is not going to increase because ice is at 0 degree. It is not yet melted. Got it? So this is very good question. If you think logically, this is a very deep question. Fine. Coming to the next question. When water at 0 degree freezes to form ice at the same temperature of 0 degree, then it absorbs some heat, it releases some heat, neither absorbs nor releases heat, absorbs exactly 3.34 into 10 to the power 5 joules per kg of heat. Let us try to understand the question again. Water at 0 degree is getting frozen to form ice, so it cannot absorb heat, right? Important thing, we have just seen two questions back that when we are talking about freezing, it releases heat. Condensation and freezing are the processes which release heat. So B will be the right answer, that water at 0 degree, it freezes to form ice at 0 degree. Latent heat is required, so that is it is going to release some heat. The opposite process is taking place. Water is getting converted into ice. Cooling part is taking place, right? So B will be the answer. Coming to the next question. When heat is constantly supplied by a burner to boiling water, then the temperature of water during vaporization. Now try to relate it again seriously. We are supplying heat constantly by a burner to boiling water. What will happen? The temperature will rise very slowly. The temperature will rise rapidly until steam is produced. It will first rise and then become constant, does not rise at all. Now, because of the past experience of back to questions, maybe certain of you will write does not write at all, rise at all, but this is wrong. Why? Because number one, it is boiling water. Secondly, very importantly, already the water is boiling. The water is boiling means it is already at 100 degree. So if you are going to constantly supply energy or heat to boiling water, now the temperature will rise rapidly until steam is produced, right? So B will be the answer to this question. Let's see the next question. Which one of the following set of phenomena would increase on raising the temperature? Okay, so if we are rising the temperature, if we are heating, let us see what all are going to increase. Diffusion increases, yes it does. Evaporation, yes it is also directly proportional to heat. Compression of gases, no, because compression is done because of pressure, can't be done by temperature. If we are going to increase the temperature, the gases are not going to compress, they are going to move away rapidly upon gaining heat. So this is the wrong thing. Evaporation, we have just said yes. Compression, no. So again we are going to mark it wrong. Evaporation, we have said yes. Diffusion, we have said yes. Expansion of gases, yes. This is going to happen when you are going to increase the temperature. Gases are going to expand, not compress. Fourth option, again we have got compression, we'll mark it wrong. So C, evaporation, diffusion and expansion of gases, all these three will increase if we are going to heat or if we are going to raise the temperature. Fine, C is the answer. Coming to the next question. Which of the following represent the suitable conditions for the liquefaction of gases? We are going to convert the gases into liquid form. Simply, we are going to cool them, right? And let us see the options. Low temperature, exactly, this is what is required. But low pressure, no. We have to provide pressure because gases can be liquefied by increasing the pressure. Because why so? On increasing the pressure, we are actually compressing the gases and we are actually bringing the scattered particles of the gases closer to each other. And this is what liquids are when the particles are comparatively closer. So low temperature is required, but high pressure is required, not low pressure. High temperature can't be. Low temperature is required and high pressure, yes. High temperature can't be. So if we want to liquefy the gases, we need to provide low temperature and high pressure under which gases can be liquefied. C will be the right answer. Got it? Coming to the next part. During summer days, water kept in an earthen pot, a pitcher, becomes cool because of the phenomena of. Options given to us are diffusion, transpiration, osmosis, evaporation. Now, what is the correct answer? Answer is evaporation. Why not the other? Diffusion is intermixing of the particles. So, there is no intermixing taking place to make the water cool. So, not a right option. Transpiration, we need to relate what is transpiration. It is the loss of water from the aerial parts of plants, not the earthen pot. So again, wrong answer. Osmosis is movement of particles from a region of higher concentration to a lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Nothing related to cooling the liquid. Whenever we are talking about cooling effect, that is caused by evaporation. And now I would like to explain it also. Exactly what happens is when we are talking about earthen pot, that is, it is made up of soil, right? Earthen pot, clay soil. The picture we all know. Now, these actually, the sand particles, they have pores or holes between them. Now, when we fill this earthen pot or pitcher with water, so water is going to seep into these holes. Now, when the sun rays fall on this earthen pot, what will happen is the water which is already present in the pores of the pot, that water is going to absorb all that heat from all the sides. And on absorbing heat, it is going to evaporate. And as a result, these rays will not be able to reach the water which is inside the pot, hence cooling it. That is why in summers we just place water in earthen pots so that they remain cool. Fine. So evaporation is the phenomena which is taking place here. D is the right answer. Coming to the next question, the conversion of a solid into vapors without passing through the liquid state. Repeated question. This is sublimation. C is the right answer. Let us see the other options also. Vaporization, no, because it is the process of conversion of a liquid into gas. Fusion, it is not fusion. No two particles are joining or combining together. Fusion is melting. Sorry, I'm taking that a different fusion. Fusion is melting. So melting is conversion of solid into liquid by heating them. Freezing is the process of conversion liquids into solids. We already know. So if we are talking about conversion of solid directly into vapors, no liquid state in between, That is the phenomenon of sublimation. Let us see the next question. The evaporation of water increases under the following conditions. What are the conditions? For that, you need to remember the factors affecting rate of evaporation. We have studied about the four factors. Let us take an opportunity to revise those. First was temperature. Rate of evaporation was directly proportional to temperature. Then it was surface area. Rate of evaporation was directly proportional. Then it was wind speed. Rate of evaporation was directly proportional. And humidity. Rate of evaporation was inversely proportional to humidity. So let us see out of these four factors which all are given. Increase in temperature, rate of evaporation will increase, no doubt. Decrease in surface area, this is the wrong option given to us, so we will strike it off. Increase in surface area, perfect. Decrease in temperature, wrong option, we'll strike it off. Increase in surface area, yes. Rise in temperature, yes. Both tick, so this is our answer. Let's see the next one. Increase in temperature, perfectly fine. Increase in surface area is also fine. Addition of common salt, how it is going to increase the evaporation? Wrong. So we'll strike out D option. So our correct answer is C. Increase in surface area, rise in temperature, increase in wind speed, and decreasing humidity, they are going to increase the rate of evaporation of water. Fine. Two are given in the question. Rest remaining two also you should revise on your own. Coming to the next question. Which of the following energy is absorbed during the change of state of a substance? So we know it is the latent heat. Latent heat is the amount of heat energy which converts a particular state of the substance without changing its temperature. So the answer is B, latent heat. Clear? Coming to the next question. Which of the following factors are responsible for the change in state of solid carbon dioxide when kept exposed to air? Now, solid carbon dioxide is going to change its state directly into vapor form because it sublimes. Solid carbon dioxide, we know it is dry ice. So what are the various reasons which are going to convert this particular solid dry ice or solid carbon dioxide into vapor form? Increase in pressure? No, nothing to do with pressure. Increase in temperature? Obviously yes. If temperature is supplied, if it is heated, definitely it is going to be converted into the change state, that is gaseous form. Decrease in pressure? Yes, because if you will decrease the pressure, then in that case what will happen is the particles which were under pressure, they were compact. On decreasing the pressure, they will tend to move out, right? So this is also one of the reason why solid carbon dioxide is going to change its state. Next is decrease in temperature? No, because it will cause the further cooling. So these are the two things. If you remember, we have got a question above in which we have seen how gases were liquefied. There we were converting the gases into the liquid state, and there the two things were just opposite to what we are studying here. Over there we had to decrease the temperature and increase the pressure, because in order to liquefy the gases we actually need to bring the particles closer. Here what we are saying, that a solid carbon dioxide is getting converted into gaseous form because it sublimes. So it will be altogether opposite. Now in order to do this opposite process, the temperature should be increased and pressure should be decreased. So B option, increase in temperature, and third option, decrease in pressure. This is what is required. Let us see the options. In A, we have got first and second. No, we have got first and third. The third one is correct, but not the first part. So we will mark it off. Second and third option. Yes, this is the answer that we need to mark. Second and fourth. Second is correct, but not the fourth. Fine. So C is the right answer to this question. Clear to everyone, guys? So these are a few questions related to the chapter Matter in Our Surroundings. Quite importantly, only 2 or 3 or 4 questions were there which were actually either worth considering or they were worth noting down. Otherwise, all of them, they were quite direct questions, quite simple questions for which you just needed to learn the states of matter, interconversion, the various processes involved in interconversion, the concept of latent heat, and very important, evaporation and the factors affecting evaporation. That's it. Mostly all the questions can be done just by learning all these things. So if you have already learned it, very good. If you haven't, you have got your opportunity right in hand because this is the end of the chapter, and in the next class, of course, we'll be starting up a new chapter. So till then, you don't have anything else in your houses to do. So make utilization of the time in hand and make sure that not only you prepare the chapter, learn all the points, but also go through all these details and questions once again so as to gain confidence. Clear, everyone? So I hope that whatever we have discussed, it was all simple and you all were able to relate. Whether it was learnt or not depended on your actual productivity and your efforts. If not, make sure by next class you are able to do it. So we'll meet in the next class, guys. Ending the chapter here only. This class is I'm going to wind up. Next class we'll be taking up with a new chapter, new thought. Till then, stay happy, stay healthy. Thank you so much and have a great day.